Well, guys, I just want to say, whatever I'm going to say now, I sort of wrote before I knew you were going to be here today. And, I just hope you'll be able to take away something of what I'm saying here that may just enable you to just come to terms with something that's just impossible to come to terms with at this stage. And we're very much with you in this, and just want to acknowledge that. Now, our children, they're already going. So our children are going now before the boringness of my talk. So thanks very much. You're all off with Marixa. Great to have 8 kids here with us, which is fantastic. Anyway, so this is the 4th in a series that I'm doing. And the subject really is the nature of realization. That's what we're talking about. How do you realize things? How do you make things come about? Realization is to bring something to existence, to make or cause something to come about. And you have a revelation, first of all, and then you realize that. And if any of you want to catch up on the sort of previous ones, just in front of you on the chair, you'll see a little red thing. You can pick that up, and that'll tell you how to get in touch with the previous ones. And if you want to be in our mailing list, the blue one is for that. Just fill that in and maybe drop it in the plate or whatever it is. So, something is revealed to us, and then we take part in the realization, the making real of that thing that's revealed to us. And in the first week, we began by speaking about the fact that all of us have whispers in our hearts. Things that we just sort of sense that we may want to have come about in our lives, promises about our lives that we think we might have heard, that our lives might mean something, that we might get a special glimpse into eternity, that we might be able to make some sort of special contribution, that we might be part of something important, or that love or joy or peace may come into our lives. We want to see the world a better place. And we get just a whisper of how we can make that come about. But the question is, can we make those whispers that we have in our heart come into reality? Not in an insistent manner that says, that it's my right for these things to happen. I will make them become real. But in a humble manner that says, if these things are truly meant to be, then I'll give myself to allowing those things to happen in my life. We have to come from the perspective that everything is possible, but not necessarily everything is probable. So that possibility is there. And in the next week, we talked about the stance that we need to take in order to be able to hear these whispers. Because they don't always come to us. How do we put ourselves in our lives to hear that calling? Because it is a calling. It's like a vocation. We're called to by the universe. How do we put ourselves? And I said it's a bit like taking a stance on a bridge. We stand on a bridge, and before us is our life. And almost behind us and within us is our inner life. And we are on that cusp between the inner and the outer. That's where we exist at all times. And then, our aliveness gives us that perspective. We are alive to what's happening in our world. And we're alive to our inner world. And beneath us, underneath the bridge, is the river flowing. And in this case, in the bridge, the river is our breath which keeps us in the present moment. Our breath keeps us awake, alive, ready just to experience what to do. And we're aware of the flowing water beneath us, our breath. And in that, we're not sucked into the fascination with the outer world, nor are we consumed by the inner world. We're on a cusp between the two, aware of both, in the moment with both, being fully alive. And that's what being in the present moment is. It's being fully alive, and it contains all these worlds, the within, the without, the flow of the water, the breath. And our job in life is to remain on that bridge, to take up that stance at all times, to be aware right now of the outer and the inner and our breath, which a breath which actually bridges the two. To listen for the whispers, to connect the inner with the outer, and to navigate whatever course is made evident to us, whatever we're called to do, to hear what's revealed to us, and then to realize it in our lives. And then last week we talked about the process of consent within all of this. How part of the process is for us to give our consent to participation within life. The word consent comes from the Latin word consentire, which means con, together, and sentire, to feel. So to consent is to feel together. It is a feeling, a joining together, and it suggests an active participation with what's going on. Even if that what's going on is terrible, we consent to the fact that this is happening in our lives. We consent to feel grief. We consent to feel anger. We consent to feel loss. And we consent to feel other things as well. But it does require that consent. The dictionary definition of consent is to yield when one has the right power or will to oppose. You can block things out and think, I'm not going to go there. You do have that power to do that. But to consent to life is to open ourselves to what is going on. So there's an equality of power in consent. And it comes from a position of strength and a recognition of partnership. And that it's important in this case to allow our lives to be shaped and developed by our relationship with those whispers that come to us from God or the divine. I'm talking about God speaking to us in our hearts. And more than that, I said last week that I felt that this was the age of consent. This was the age of consent. It is the watchword for the new consciousness that is emerging at the moment. And that new consciousness is the global consciousness that recognizes the essential, unified, and interdependent nature of our existence. This new consciousness recognizes the interdependent nature of all our existence. And this new consciousness recognizes consent as a necessary requirement for participation in a new way. Consent in relationship between peoples, consent to government, consent to relationship with other communities, and also consent in relationship to the planet. And so I'm saying this new consciousness demands consent. And it is through consent that things become whole. And I think consent is the next step in the evolution of ourselves into interdependence. It requires consent, which is why currently the idea of dictatorship is just thrown into such sharp relief in today's world. Dictators are against consent. They want to use force. They're essentially limited. Dictators are limited to the intelligence of that one person and their coterie, and therefore they are all bound to fail eventually. The wisdom of interdependence is the only thing that will enable the development of humanity on this planet. It is a combined wisdom rather than the individual wisdom of the dictator. A relationship of interdependence demands consent as a basis for participation, and to enforce without consent goes against the principles of interdependence. And that is the route to peace. So if you look at how it works, at the first stage of achieving this peace is to consent to our deep relationship with life as we stand on the bridge. We consent to that relationship. We stand on the bridge, the interface between our inner and our outer world, the river beneath us straddling the two. We listen for the calling of life. We listen for those whispers. We consent to the life we're given. Whatever the circumstances, we have to consent to that. We love life. We give to life with no expectation of return. We allow ourselves to be molded and shaped by that which is infinitely more wise than we are, the great mind of the divine. And then we act. And the next stage is acting. Last week I took a reading from Marcus Aurelius because it perfectly leads us to the next stage. I was watching the film The Holdovers, which I thoroughly recommend. And the guy in The Holdovers gave everyone for Christmas a copy of Marcus Aurelius, saying, this is a cross between the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and the Bible. And I thought, well, I've got to buy that. So I did. And it's always good when you buy something because it actually, something comes out at you. And this came out at me last week. And I just think it's relevant to what we're talking about today, which is, given the situation that we're in right now, how do we act? Given those whispers, given whatever's going on, how do we act? And this is what Marcus Aurelius says. He says, remember how long you've been putting this off. How many extensions the gods gave you and you didn't use them. At some point, you have to recognize the world that you belong to. What power rules it, and from what source you spring. That there is a limit to the time assigned to you. And if you don't use it to free yourself, it will be gone. And it will never return. If you don't lose it, there's a limit to the time. And if you don't lose it, it will be gone. And it will never return. And it reminds me of that wonderful poem by Mary Oliver, A Summer's Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one that has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous, complicated eyes. Now she shifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing today. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And that really is the nub of it. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Once the calling is revealed, once we consent to a relationship with life, then we have to act before it's gone, never to return. What I'm going to say now is particularly poignant, I know, to some of you, but death is so final. And in the end, all that we've learnt is lost if we haven't put it into action. Think about it. All that's gone into each of you, school, college, love of friends and family, learning from experiences, trying things out, finding what works and what doesn't work, all the learning, all the courses you've been on, all the books you've read, everything that's made you continually think and work out life and get to where you are at the moment over years and years. And here you are now with all of it within you. And the moment you die, it's gone. It's lost to the world. Not lost to you. Your learning is lost to the world. You know, the loss in terms of Eileen, our loss is everything she stood for in the world. That's what we've lost. Or everything she built goes at that moment. And there is a lesson there. for all of us. Which is why you have to make sure that it is put to good use before you go. You have to invest yourself. You have to invest yourself so that the world benefits from you being here. You have to act. Not just hope that something will remain. You have to act while not being sure. And this is the key thing here, what I want to say today. You have to act while not being sure what the outcome will be. Not knowing what the outcome will be. There's a famous sort of prayer used in lots of churches which sort of sums it up, which is, the idea in the prayer is to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labor and not to ask for any reward save that of knowing that we do your will. It's committed, and yet often we're hesitant. We don't want to push ourselves forwards. And a lot of the time it's because we think we're not good enough. So we don't act. I remember, in another life, I used to work in broadcasting. When I was at college. When I was at college, I joined the local radio station, BBC Radio Bristol. And I had such a great time. And really, I should have carried on. But you know why I didn't? I saw all the guys around me, and they were able to get on the radio and go, just talk fluidly, and I couldn't do that. And I thought, I'm not good enough. And so I didn't pursue that. And often, we don't pursue things because we tell ourselves we're not good enough. I then went into advertising, and actually, by then I'd realized the fact that, yes, loads of people don't apply for a job in advertising or whatever it is because they think they're not going to get on. They're not good enough to do it. And one of the reasons that we don't do is we make decisions about what will work and what will not work, and we hesitate. But that is to miss the point of acting. We do not act in order to take a route that will guarantee something. We act, we take the step we're asked to take without any guarantees of the result. When we hear those whispers, that calling, we take the step whether or not there are guarantees. We act on those whispers, even if we don't know the eventual outcome. There's a great little bit in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna speaks to Arjuna. And Krishna says, actions cannot defile me, since I am indifferent to results. All those who understand this will not be bound by their actions. This is how the actions were done by the ancient seekers of freedom. Follow their example. Act, surrendering the fruits of the action. With no desire for success, with no anxiety about failure, indifferent to results, the master burns up his actions in the fire of wisdom, surrendering all thoughts of outcome, unperturbed, self-reliant. He does nothing at all, even when fully engaged in actions. That is the spirit of action that is required of us. And with that attitude, anything is possible, even things that we cannot imagine. It is our judgment that stops us taking that first step. But once the first step is taken, we don't go blindly forward. We stand on the bridge again. We sense the breath flowing between the inner and the outer. We wait for the next whisper. What to do now? And the answer may be we do nothing. But we are continually at that moment where we're thinking of what to do. There's a famous passage from the Tao Te Ching, which says, the ancient masters were profound and subtle. It describes this. The ancient masters were profound and subtle. Their wisdom was unfathomable. There is no way to describe it. All we can describe is their appearance. They were careful as someone crossing an iced-over stream. alert as a warrior in enemy territory, courteous as a guest, fluid as melting ice, shapeable as a block of wood, receptive as a valley, clear as a glass of water. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till right action arises by itself? The master doesn't seek fulfillment. Not seeking, not expecting, she is present and can welcome all things. And it's that attitude that characterizes both our action and our inaction. If it is inaction, it has to be dynamic inaction, being actively passive, coming from a revelation that inaction is what is required. But most of us, our inaction is funk. We just don't want to risk it, don't want to go forward. But to risk what? We have this one wild and precious life, and we are going to use it, to have something. Are we going to use it to have something happen or not? If not me, who? If not now, when? Each of us is faced with this as we try to bring about that which is deep within us. But again, it's not an insistent bringing about. It is one that is done in relationship with life. We have a definition of spirituality here, which is spirituality is a sensitive and rewarding relationship with eternal truth and love. And that's the very essence of consent. Sensitive, rewarding, relating, eternal truth and love. A sensitive and rewarding relationship with eternal truth and love. These are the tools we use to decide our actions. We act and then we reassess. We're not affected by how good or bad it feels, whether or not it looks like we're going to succeed or not. For failure and success are really just two sides of the same coin. They are our judgment on action, made in the moment without the bigger picture. Chairman Mao was famously asked what he thought of the French Revolution, and he said, "It's too early to tell." We have to have that perspective. We don't know what is going to come out of an event. There's that. I used to tell this story, and those of you who've been here a long time will hear it. But there's a famous story of a Chinese farmer who had only one horse. And one morning, this Chinese farmer awoke and found the horse had gone, his one horse. And all his friends came round to commiserate and said, "What bad luck. You only had one horse." And the farmer looked impassively and said, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" And the next week, the farmer woke up to find the paddock full of horses because his one horse had returned and brought with him a herd of wild horses from the hills. And the farmer's friends returned, and this time they went to celebrate. "What good luck," they said. And the farmer again looked impassively and said, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" And the next day, the farmer decided he was going to break in all the horses. So he got onto one of the first horse, and he started to break it in, and the horse threw him off, and he fell on the ground and broke his leg badly, his only son, broken leg. And the friends came around and said, "Well, what bad luck?" And of course, he says, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" Because the following week, the emperor declares war, and all the sons of all the farmers are rounded up to go and fight in the war, except the farmer's son, because his leg was broken. We don't know what's going to come out of any event. We think we know when something is good or bad, and we try to steer our lives towards what we think is good. But the truth is we don't know. So we cannot really say whether the result of an action is good or bad. We can only respond from our place in consciousness, aware of ourselves, aware of the calling of what to do next. We have to, all of us, be aware of that calling as to what to do next. And if you feel you're not in the right place to take action that you're called to be taking, again, there's that famous story of the two travelers who came to the farmer on the gate as he walked down the road. And the two travelers said to the farmer, "Can you tell us the way to the great city from here?" "Sure," the farmer answered. "But if I was going to the great city, I wouldn't want to be starting from here." And all of us think that, maybe we're not in the right place in our lives to make that step. We think we have to get somewhere to take the first step on our vocation, to be in the right place, wherever that may be. But here is the key understanding, and I think it's absolutely key in life. You are always in exactly the right place to take the next step. You're always in exactly the right place. And it's an amazing realization that you, right now, are in exactly the right place to begin the next phase of your journey. Your whole life has brought you to this point. Everything you've ever done has brought you to the point of being here now. And everything has conspired for you to be in exactly the right place. You couldn't be in a better place to take the next step in your life. And that's true for every single moment in your life. I'm coming to the end now, so don't panic. You're never in the wrong place. All you can do is not recognize that you're in the right place, and then automatically you'll miss the point and the opportunity of that moment. To be in the right place at the right time, you simply have to acknowledge the rightness of the moment, and thus the moment becomes yours. So all of us here are in that place to take our next step. Commit to that. Whatever your circumstances, wherever you are, trust this moment as being one that is right for you, one that has meaning, one that is setting you on a journey that you're being called to take. What is that next step? Maybe ask yourself that. What is that next step? What do you do right now as your next step? So we always have an opportunity in our services here for you to make a contribution, either sort of to argue with what I've said, disagree, or to share an experience, or to ask a totally unrelated question. So we're going to just offer that out. Sometimes no one wants to do that, so it's totally okay to have complete silence. And we like silence. We'll have silence for a little bit, and then we'll have another bit of music if necessary. But would anybody like to make a contribution, to say anything? Yes. Just say your name so everybody knows who you are, and then we'll go from there. Great.
It's me, Lisa. Yeah, courage is what I'd like to offer and receive. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Ward. Thank you.
I kind of want to take exception to something you said, that your efforts are gone when you're dead. And also to comment that there's never a better time than right now to do something, that our efforts outlive us. If you do something that's worth doing and we're gone, it's still worth work carrying on.
Totally agree with that, yeah. Obviously, I also want to say that nothing we do is ever lost. Everything we do, I have this belief that there's a sort of consciousness of records of everything that anyone has ever done. So everything that Eileen has ever done in her life, none of that will ever be lost. It's always going to be there for us to draw on, for us to have. It's never lost. And I totally agree with what Wood says. So what I'm really wanting to say is, this is the time we have to do the things where we can make a difference, and we can put something in those records that other people can draw from. But I totally agree with what you're saying. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Bruce.
To tie two of your ideas together, one is you look at the repository of sort of wealth and perhaps untapped potential, and everybody running around here in our society. and, to take action. When my first child, my son, was born, the day he was born, coincidentally, a very famous former U.S. Senator, personal friend of mine, died at 88 years old. And I just thought, well, wow, this guy was a rock star, and he's gone. And how is society going to replace him? I sort of looked at my son, and I thought, oh my, do we have some work to do? But I do think that when it comes to what actions we choose, to be aware of the commonwealth that we have in our friends and our social capabilities. So
Yes.
I encourage everybody to raise the next generation well.
Thank you. That's lovely. Yes, Camille.
I work with the spirit world as a paranormal professional. The soul that never dies. Just because it drops the body, it's still at work. I see this all the time in my work. Whoever is passed, she's still with you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Andy.
I'll follow on with that and quote Lao Tzu, since Nicholas is talking about Taoism today. Lao Tzu said, "I'm an immortal spiritual being having a temporary human experience."
It's lovely. Thank you. Anybody else? We're going to have some more music. We're going to have an offertory now. If you'd like to make a contribution to the chapel, this is the plate. While Lydia is playing, you can come up and put something in the plate if you'd like to do that. If you're watching online, please do use the donate button just to make a contribution. It makes a real difference to us to be able to keep doing with the work that we're doing. And thank you so much for everything you gave to the conversation. It really made a difference. So that.